You know, in every single global company, there's this invisible force at work. It's not something you'll ever find on a balance sheet, but it's what really dictates who gets ahead, which ideas take off, and who holds the actual power. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on that hidden world. So, what is this powerful invisible force? You might be thinking, okay, it's got to be strategy, right? Or technology, the company's culture? Well, the real answer is probably not what you'd expect. Yeah, the answer? You are not going to find it on any official organization chart. Nope. It operates behind the scenes, kind of in the shadows, creating the real map of how things actually get done.
Now, most big multinational companies think they have a really simple fix for this. Just have one official company language. The idea sounds great, right? If everybody just speaks English, then we're all on the same page. But does that elegant solution really work?
The stated goal is always to create this global family, a single, tight-knit group where information just flows, everyone feels included, and country borders just fade away. It's a beautiful idea, for sure. But the reality? Well, that can be a whole different story. To see how this all plays out in the real world, we're going to look at this really fascinating case study. It's about Kone Elevators, a huge Finnish company. A team of researchers got to go deep, really deep, inside their operations to find out what was truly going on. And here is the very first clue that something's a little off. Get this. 92% of Kone's employees are not Finnish. Now, with a headquarters based in Finland, that number immediately signals a massive potential disconnect with the rest of the so-called global family. And that disconnect? It ends up building an invisible wall. Because even though the company's official policy was, we all spoke English, the reality for people on the ground was, well, starkly different.
It was almost like there were two different companies operating under the same roof. If you were fluent in English, your world was huge. You were building global networks, flying out for international trainings, getting key info straight from the source. But if you weren't, you were stuck. Pretty much confined to your local office, shut out from those opportunities, and totally dependent on other people to tell you what was going on.
And this isn't just some theory. You can just feel the frustration in this quote from a manager in Mexico. He's basically saying, look, we have talented people, but the language barrier just completely cuts them off. There's no way for them to get the company's training. It's a total dead end.
And the results of all this is what the researchers started calling isolated islands. So instead of one big, unified company, Kone was becoming more like a scattered chain of islands with very few bridges between them. And when your teams are isolated, collaboration just stalls, morale takes a hit, and brilliant ideas get lost somewhere out at sea. Now, whenever you have a bunch of isolated islands, you need bridges. And the people who control those bridges, well, they suddenly gain a massive amount of power. Which brings us to the next critical piece of this puzzle. See, because the official channels just weren't working for everyone, informal ones started to pop up. Certain people, the ones who could speak the right combination of languages, they became these language mediators. They turned into these essential information hubs, and they ended up with a level of influence that went way beyond their official job title. I mean, this quote from an Australian manager is just perfect. He's talking about a Finnish colleague who's his link back to the main headquarters. And just listen to the words he uses. Play the right game, pull the right strings. This isn't formal corporate speak, right? This is the language of insider knowledge and real, informal power. So the researchers figured out there were actually 3 different languages of power inside the company. First, there's the parent language, which was Finnish. That gave you a direct line to the old guard, to the very heart of the company. Second, you had the company language, English, which was the official key to the kingdom. And third, there was the local subsidiary language, like Spanish in Mexico, which was essential to just get daily work done. So get this, the people with the most power weren't always the senior VPs. They were the people who could speak all 3 of those languages. Think about a Finnish manager in Mexico who's fluent in Finnish, English, and Spanish. That person becomes an absolutely essential gatekeeper and probably one of the most powerful people in that entire region. And this dynamic, it had a really serious impact on the culture. Non-Finnish speakers told the researchers they felt like second-class managers, like they were always a step behind. It even created this perception of a Finnish mafia, an inner circle that was sharing all the critical information in their native language. And hey, when your best people feel like they're on the outside looking in, you're running a huge risk of losing them. So you take all these things,
the divides, the power plays, the gatekeepers, and it all leads to this one stunning conclusion. The official org chart, it's pretty much a work of fiction. The real organization is something else entirely.
On paper, Kone looked exactly how you'd expect. It was organized nice and logically, by geography. You had the European division, the Asian division, and so on. This is how management saw their company, a neat and tidy map of regions and who reports to who. But as we've seen, the reality of how people were communicating and where the power really was, that was something very, very different. So, is that tidy map really how work got done? And the answer is a resounding no. What the researchers actually uncovered was a hidden shadow structure. It was like an invisible, informal org chart running completely parallel to the official one. And this shadow structure wasn't based on geography or your department. It was based entirely, 100%, on language. So this is what the real lines of communication looked like. You can just forget those official regions. The company really worked in language clusters. Finns talked to other Finns, the Germans and Austrians collaborated, the Scandinavian countries formed their own little group. The Spanish and Italian units connected. This was the company's true map. This shadow structure creates this concept that the researchers called language distance. So, for example, the Spanish-speaking teams felt incredibly far away from the Finnish headquarters, not because of physical distance, but because the language gap was so huge. Informally, they were much, much further away than an English-speaking office in Asia might have been.
Okay, so why does all of this matter? What's the bottom line? Well, first, language isn't just a tool for talking. It's a tool for organizing. It creates an unwritten org chart that often matters way more than the official one. Second, it builds these hidden hierarchies that the people at the top might not even see. And finally, this shadow structure can actually undermine a company's formal strategy because information is flowing along paths that were never designed or approved. The biggest takeaway here is this. The official org chart shows who is supposed to talk to whom. The shadow structure reveals who actually does. And those lines are drawn not by titles, but by language. And that leaves us with a final question, because this isn't just about Kone. It's about any group of people trying to work together. So take a look around your own workplace. Who really talks to whom? Where does information truly flow? What does the shadow structure look like in your organization?